what are some of the most effective strategies for professional learners to actively engage with the material on so they can move beyond passive reading and listening? Because highlighting, rereading the text wasn't effective back then. It's not effective now. Give us some other strategies that we can use that you've researched and written about.
I would probably lean on kind of three strategies here that I think are the easiest. They translate to pretty much anything that you're working with, and are going to be impactful for everyone. And the first is honestly just like note taking. So when we look at notes, like you often think of note taking just as like a formal student strategy for formal learning. But in reality, good note taking does lead to long term retention. But I'm going to put the emphasis on good note taking. So we don't want to be doing like verbatim note taking where you're just like copying down like quotes from a book that you're reading or something. That's not terribly effective. But ideas are. So the act of writing, and when I say writing, I don't mean handwriting. It can be typing, it can be on a tablet, it can be wherever. But the act of like translating knowledge and putting it in your own words and writing down ideas and questions about it is very effective for helping that information stick. So while you're reading something, take some notes in the margin, or even if you never look at those again, the act of doing that is helpful. But then that gets us into the other two strategies, which is you probably should look at it again. That's like probably the easiest strategy that I can say is one and done is in fact one and done. The closest thing that we probably have to a law in cognitive psychology is the forgetting curve. And that is when we learn something, we forget it really rapidly. So if you're reading a book or sitting in onboarding, whatever the case might be, the chances that you're going to forget that are very high unless you revisit it. So what we know helps with slowing down the rate of forgetting is spaced repetition. So seeing things again spaced out over time. And then I prefer to just talk about spaced retrieval because that's enhanced even more if you're trying to recall that information and not just reread it. So, in an ideal world, if you're reading a book that you find to be impactful and you're hoping that you can hold on to that over time and use that in your practice, you don't want to just read the book. You want to have some way of retrieving that information later on, of revisiting that information spaced out over time.
Great strategies. And just to recap, the summarization really needs to be the main ideas in your own words, paraphrasing. Don't just write them out verbatim. Retrieval, close the book and try to recall what you just read. And then the spacing, and Mark McDaniel stated there's, the number one question him and uh, Roddy get asked is how long? And it just depends on the individual, depends on the material. But Mark had a good metric or gauge to say, not too long where you forget everything, but long enough to where you forget something so that you have to be active in your retrieval and make it more effortful.